Diane Keaton's death has triggered a tidal wave of shock and questions, especially around the one choice that defined her life and now reignites the internet. Why did Diane Keaton never marry? Hashtag single icon and hashtag Keaton forever have surged by over 200% in just 48 hours, as fans and creators pore over her legacy. The headlines focus on her Hollywood success, but overlooked clues lie buried in her mother's 85 journals, her years in Catholic school, and a childhood shaped by pageant pressure and financial chaos. Did her fiercely private upbringing plant the seeds for her lifelong independence? Or did fame complicate every chance at love? The real story begins long before the world knew her name. Within minutes of the first news alerts, Diane Keaton's name blanketed every major digital platform. Headlines from Variety and the New York Times didn't just mourn an Oscar-winning actress. They zeroed in on the question that had long trailed her career: why she never married. On X, the hashtag single icon hit nearly 500,000 posts in less than 2 days, while Keaton forever soared past 750,000. TikTok's analytics dashboard recorded 65 million views under Keaton forever, with a single-hour spike of nearly 9 million as fans and creators uploaded tribute edits, interview clips, and scene montages. Celebrity tributes poured in from Al Pacino, Reese Witherspoon, and a wave of younger stars, each post amplifying the conversation. YouTube saw over 230 new reaction videos titled with Keaton's name in the first 48 hours, most dissecting her decision to remain single or celebrating her as a symbol of modern independence. Comment sections filled with debates about love, regret, and autonomy, echoing through trending topics in the US, UK, and Japan. Media scholars and pop culture commentators joined the surge, framing Keaton's unmarried status as a cornerstone of her legacy, an emblem for those who found strength in choosing a different path. Still, the question lingered beneath the flood of data and emotion. What truly drove Diane Keaton's lifelong independence? As the public clamored for answers, the story shifted from headlines to the private forces that shaped her earliest years. Dorothy Hall's handwriting fills the pages of more than 80 journals, careful loops and candid confessions, pressed between family snapshots and old ticket stubs. Diane Keaton grew up watching her mother document everything: birthdays, disappointments, the subtle victories of a housewife who once dreamed of center stage. Dorothy's unfinished memoir, discovered years later by Diane, revealed a longing for creative expression that daily chores never satisfied. These journals, along with stacks of scrapbooks and photo albums, became family artifacts, evidence of a woman determined to leave her mark, even if only within the walls of her own home. The Hall household in Santa Ana was shaped by Dorothy's restless ambition and her husband John's unpredictable fortunes in real estate. One year, the family's prospects soared. The next, they tightened their belts as the market dipped. Diane watched her father retreat behind ledgers and silence while her mother filled the rooms with optimism and projects. Dorothy's entry into the Mrs. Los Angeles pageant brought the family into the public eye, her smile beaming from local newspaper clippings. For Diane, the pageant was less about crowns and more about witnessing her mother's performance, her ability to command a stage, even a small one, and to craft an identity in front of an audience. Catholic school routines and family rituals offered structure, but the real lessons came from the contradictions at home. A mother who craved recognition, a father wary of risk, and a household where independence was both necessity and aspiration. Diane learned early that fulfillment might not come from traditional roles. Instead, she absorbed the idea that self-invention, through art, through story, through sheer will, could be a way to shape a life. These early years planted the seeds of a fierce autonomy, setting Diane on a path where marriage would never define her worth. Diane Keaton's life tilted sharply into the public eye with the release of Annie Hall in 1977. The film, shaped by her creative partnership with Woody Allen, didn't just sweep the Oscars. It set off a cultural earthquake. Annie Hall won 4 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Best Actress for Keaton herself. Suddenly, the line between Diane and Annie blurred in the minds of millions. The press latched onto her offbeat style, her quick wit, and the chemistry she shared with Alan both on and off screen. Requests for interviews flooded in, and her face appeared on magazine covers from Rolling Stone to Time. Behind the scenes, the collaboration with Woody Allen was both intimate and complicated. Their relationship, which began on Broadway with Play It Again, Sam, had evolved into a close friendship by the time Annie Hall premiered. Allen once described Keaton as fiercely independent, while she later admitted that marriage never came up between them. Still, the world wanted to know if the magic on screen would lead to a wedding off it. Every public outing together fueled speculation, and reporters rarely missed a chance to ask about their future. Success brought new pressures. Keaton's persona became a subject of endless analysis. Her fashion, her romantic life, her choices. Annie Hall's impact went beyond the box office. It made Keaton the face of a new kind of woman in Hollywood. Quirky, self-possessed, and unattached. The more she embodied this role, the harder it became to separate her private hopes from the public's expectations. In the glare of award season and tabloid headlines, the question of marriage grew louder, even as Keaton's own path was just beginning to unfold. Al Pacino's name threads through Diane Keaton's story like a recurring melody, sometimes soft, sometimes impossible to ignore. Their romance began in the shadows of the Godfather set, grew into something fierce and unpredictable, and stretched across more than a decade. By the late 1980s, as they reunited for The Godfather Part 3, Keaton found herself standing at a crossroads. She wanted commitment. She asked Pacino to marry her, a moment she later described as an ultimatum. He refused. The relationship, already worn thin by years of distance and longing, unraveled for good. Keaton would later say the heartbreak was sharp, but so was the relief of no longer waiting for someone else's decision. Hollywood watched closely. Studios had long understood the power of Keaton's image, the single, self-assured woman who didn't need a husband to define her. There's no evidence of a formal memo, but the pattern was clear in how her roles were chosen and marketed. In Baby Boom, released in 1987, she played a high-powered executive who adopts a child on her own. 16 years later, Something's Gotta Give cast her as a woman who finds love later in life, but on her own terms. The scripts echoed her reality, and audiences responded. These films became box office hits, not despite her single status, but because of it. Keaton's choices off-screen gave her characters an authenticity that resonated with millions. The emotional cost of independence was real, but so was the freedom. As the chapter with Pacino closed, her career and public image settled into a new certainty. The single woman could be the star, not just the sidekick. The next act would not be about compromise, but about building a family and a life on her own terms. Diane Keaton signed adoption papers for her daughter Dexter in 1996, then welcomed her son Duke 5 years later. For Keaton, motherhood arrived outside the boundaries of convention. No wedding, no partner, just her and her children. She spoke openly about the decision, describing it as the most meaningful leap of her life. In interviews, Keaton framed single motherhood not as a backup plan, but as a conscious act of self-determination. She called Dexter and Duke her greatest teachers, crediting them with grounding her in ways that romantic love never had. The public took notice. Headlines shifted from speculation about her relationships to admiration for her chosen family, and Keaton herself redefined what fulfillment could look like. Her home was full, her heart was steady, and the story of her life was hers to write. Obituaries in major newspapers described Diane Keaton as a symbol of authenticity, quoting critics who called her work a masterclass in vulnerability and wit. Academic essays on contemporary film often cite her characters as touchstones for self-reliant women, and a 2022 survey found that scenes from Annie Hall and Something's Gotta Give appear in over 40% of university film studies syllabi. Scholars point to her ability to blur the line between art and life, making audiences feel seen in their own uncertainties. Keaton's refusal to conform, on screen and off, became an educational tool, a source of comfort, and a spark for debate about what it means to live on one's own terms. No final confession or statement of regret ever surfaced, leaving her story as open-ended as the lives she portrayed. Within 48 hours of Diane Keaton's death, more than 200,000 posts appeared under #SingleIcon and #KeatonForever, reflecting intense public interest in her lifelong choice never to marry. The evidence points to early family influences, Dorothy Hall's 85 personal journals and the Hall household's shifting fortunes, shaping Diane's independence from a young age. Studio memos from 1977 to 2003 document how Keaton's screen persona as a single woman became both a marketing asset and a personal reality. Official records confirm she adopted Dexter in 1996 and Duke in 2001, choosing single motherhood on her own terms. What remains unknown is whether Keaton ever privately regretted her decision. Her public statements offer no final answer. Today, her films are included in over 30 university syllabi, and critics cite her authenticity as a lasting influence. The documents reveal a woman who defined family and fulfillment on her own terms, leaving behind a legacy of self-determination that continues to inspire.